Olivia Culpo is under mass amounts of fire for her too modest wedding dress. This is the video that sparked the outrage.
She said two things. First of all, she says, I didn't want to exude sex in any way. The second thing she says is she wanted the dress to be as serious as she takes the covenant of marriage. Now listen, there is nothing wrong with wanting a modest wedding dress or just modest attire in general. But the way that she was talking about this went beyond just wanting something modest for herself and pushing this idea of what she thinks all brides should look like. Her two statements next to each other are a very eloquent way of saying that you are asking for whatever you are dressed as, which is an extremely harmful way of thinking. I also just think it's so weird how much she talks about coverage, especially as someone who in her day-to-day life is not exactly a modest dresser. She even says that her husband thinks she's the most beautiful when she's timeless, covered, and elegant. I just think the usage of the word covered is so icky.
So by saying that you don't want to exude sex and that you take marriage as a serious covenant that it is, you're now pushing your beliefs on other people. This isn't the same logic that happens with other things. If people say that, oh, I want to be a sexy bride, or they show off a lot of skin on their wedding, that's not interpreted as the media getting mad at them saying that they're pushing it on a bunch of people. Hey guys, welcome back to Out of Context, where we talk about all of the craziness from pop culture to politics, everything from a Gen Z Christian perspective. I'm so stoked to be back because I took off all of June, and the reason that I did that was I want to make sure that I'm giving you guys the best commentary that I possibly can. And June was a really crazy month for me, but I feel rejuvenated and I'm so stoked. Olivia Culpo is under mass amounts of fire for her too modest wedding dress, but because she's talking about her values and wanting to make a covenant and it be serious and have an element of gravity to it, and also wear a more modest dress for the ceremony, it's somehow considered pushing your beliefs on someone else. I really don't understand why people are mad that she's talking so much about being modest during the wedding ceremony, because if you go look at her Instagram photos and you look at the reception dress is not very modest. I mean, like, it's not the worst it could be, but it's a sheer skirt with like a one piece underneath. She looks pretty covered, but still, it's a sheer skirt. I probably wouldn't wear that. I find it ironic because so many people are saying, well, she's pushing this on other people. If she wasn't, she wouldn't have put this on her Instagram of her reception dress. Again, not endorsing it, but it just doesn't really make any sort of sense. But meanwhile, the internet is freaking over a woman who chose to dress modestly during her wedding ceremony and emphasize the commitment of marriage. The world is kind of celebrating and propping up the Hawk Tuah girl. Now, if you're watching this with littles, I just recommend that you maybe watch this a little bit later, the second part, but I'm going to be really careful in the way that I discuss this, so just a little heads up.
Bed that makes a man go crazy every time.
Oh, you gotta give him that Hawk Tuah.
So ever since this Hawk Tuah girl went viral overnight, she has sang at Zach Bryan's concert, has almost 1 million followers on Instagram, but yet she says that she doesn't want to be known as the Hawk Tuah girl because this is why.
I really want that to be like my image.
Yeah.
Like, Hawk Tuah girl. I don't see that being like
A
my
forever
thing.
thing.
You know?
Maybe this is why we should think before we speak and not get plastered on Broadway. Now, I've been to Nashville, I've been to Broadway. I was completely sober when I was hanging out at Broadway, and it was so much fun. So you don't have to go get plastered if you go to Broadway and you go to the honky tonks and you have a lot of fun. I just think it's so interesting. This is what happens when we are quick to speak and we don't think about our words, because now you're forever going to be known as the Hawk Tuah girl who just sexualized herself to the whole entire internet. And again, getting mad at a modest bride. Meanwhile, we are propping up this person who has now since quit her job and is going to start a show about what? I'm not really sure, because the thing you got famous for is being crude.
What do your parents think, or your family
I think it's so funny.
Okay, so they're in on
They
it.
know how I am though, because like you can never tell what comes out of my mouth. I mean, it's a hit or a miss what comes out of my mouth.
This is why we should be wise with our words. It's not cute to say, oh, well, I just say, like, I get it. I used to be there where I was just like, oh, I'm this, rambunctious personality and I'm adventurous and just whatever comes to mind, I'm opinionated. But no, that's a lack of self-control.
I've been dropped out of school for like a year or two.
Okay, so this was
But
like your
I
time.
don't quit my job. I said peace.
So now is like you're gonna go to LA, you're gonna go to New York.
Oh yeah.
Do you think you see yourself like starting your own type of like show or podcast, or are you just gonna be like an internet personality?
I think we're gonna do like a show, and then we're just gonna be like on a bunch of podcasts and everything else in between.
So we shame someone for being modest and emphasizing the importance of a marriage commitment on her wedding day. Meanwhile, we prop up and make someone famous who said something sexually explicit and something crude. She literally gave advice to people that went viral about Hawk Tuah, but then another woman who decides this is my personal choice on how I want to celebrate my wedding day, of how I want to dress, how I want to go about it, how I want to be modest, how I want to emphasize that this is a commitment that I'm making to a whole another human being. We shame her and we're saying that, oh, well, now she's projecting her beliefs on other brides. Never once did she do that. She said that this is what I want to do. Meanwhile, this other chick who's being sexually explicit, we praise her. That being said, in a world of Hawk Tuah girls, be a Miss Universe. Be someone who values marriage. Christian perspective, we live to a completely different standard. We live to honor the Lord in everything we do, from our clothing to our speech to the way we interact in the world. That is completely different. But what I am saying is get married, make the commitment, do what honors the Lord, and value your spouse and the person that you're going to spend the rest of your life with. Don't just look for cheap one-night stands and getting drunk on Broadway and saying foolish things that you're going to regret.